Patrick? Why is the door open? Patrick?
When darkness falls, evil rises. Fears become real in the dead of night. December 8th, 2011, 10 p.m. Seattle PD homicide investigators are dispatched to Four Freedoms House, a retirement home in North Seattle. There's been a report that a homicide victim has been found in his apartment.
It seems like there's a bit of a struggle.
The thing that struck me about the scene was the brutality of this murder. It was an overkill.
Here you go, guys. What do you got?
Seems like we got multiple stab wounds here.
Police identify the victim as 70-year-old Patrick Fleming, a retired Navy veteran. Right away, investigators wonder if the location of the retirement home played a role in the crime.
The Four Freedoms House is only a couple of blocks off of Aurora Avenue North, which is a notorious area for drug users and prostitution and things like that. We suspected that it might be one of the street people from out on Aurora, that they have problems with them coming and going out of the building.
Detectives have responded to suspicious activity at the Four Freedoms House before.
We knew the people there were targeted by people off the street frequently. We knew it was a serious problem in the facility.
Despite this, the Four Freedoms House is a Seattle institution where people like Patrick can move in and typically feel safe later in life.
And that's why this crime was so traumatic. Here was a man that was expecting to, live out what was the rest of his life secure, and then he's murdered just brutally in his own home.
Patrick Fleming was a highly decorated Vietnam War veteran.
Patrick Fleming was a career Navy person. Everything about him was Navy. He lived, breathed, and slept Navy.
Patrick had been a riverboat gunner in the Mekong Delta of Vietnam. He was awarded gold and bronze stars for his courage.
He was brave, and that he saved so many lives, and that he risked his own over and over again to save the lives of his fellow servicemen. He was wounded twice, and he had 2 Purple Hearts.
Although it had been over 30 years since Patrick was on the front lines, his loved ones believed he still carried demons from his time in battle.
He was a very deep person, and I'm sure that he was probably trying to fend off those memories.
Patrick's friends can't believe a man who has survived more than 200 combat patrols in the Vietnam War was finally taken down in a home for the elderly.
Because he had survived so many things during the war, he used to say often, "You can't hurt steel." But I know that he fought for his life.
Investigators do find evidence that Patrick struggled with his killer.
There were signs of defensive wounds on his hands.
Patrick being a military man, I'm willing to guess that he wasn't going to go without a fight.
Didn't believe, because of the amount of force necessary to do this, that it was another senior citizen in the apartment. And this person had to be stronger and younger.
Police closely examined Patrick's fingernails to try to recover the killer's DNA.
When you're defending yourself, a lot of times you scratch or you claw, and you'll get the perpetrator's DNA on your fingernails.
The DNA results will take several weeks. In the meantime, police immediately talk with as many witnesses as they can track down.
Hi, Detective Floyd Steiger here talking about Patrick Fleming.
They start with the neighbor and close friend who found Patrick, Rosemary Garnett.
Rosemary, can you tell us what happened?
Well, Patrick and I were watching TV till about 6:45. Okay, I'll see you later.
Take care.
I came back to my apartment. Then I realized that I forgot my orange juice. So I called him on the phone. "Hi, Patrick. This is Rosemary. You there?" And and he didn't answer. The machine picked up, which was unusual. I'm coming down. Bye.
Rosemary says she returned about 2 hours after she first left his apartment. The hall was eerily quiet as night descended on the Four Freedoms.
And his door was ajar. Why is the door open? Patrick? 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 I walked in and he was... I went across the hall to our neighbor Richard and I banged on the door, but he wasn't home. So I came back to my apartment and I called you.
Rosemary's account gives investigators a timeline for the murder. She had left Patrick's apartment at about 6:45 and returned there at approximately 9 p.m.
So we were down within about a 2-hour window of opportunity.
But they are lacking something major, a motive.
Did he have any enemies?
It's difficult to imagine who would want to kill this warm and engaging man whose life was dedicated to serving his country.
Any recent disputes or arguments with anybody?
Not that I know of.
Can you think of anybody who would want to do this to you?
No.
After an exhaustive interview with Rosemary, investigators say they didn't learn anything about Patrick's past that would explain why someone would want to kill him.
There is one thing.
That is, until she exposes one last detail. Coming up, Patrick's neighbor tells detectives that not everything was rosy among residents at the Four Freedoms house.
Patrick was telling me how she was stalking him.
Hello, Patrick.
Seattle police are baffled as to how a decorated Navy veteran wound up stabbed to death in his own apartment.
There is one thing.
But then, a close friend of his reveals something that could help them start to unravel the mystery.
He had a coin collection. He was passionate about it.
Rosemary told us that Patrick collected a lot of coins, gold and silver coins, collectible coins.
He kept it in a drawer because he loved to look at them.
She believed it was worth like $60,000, the total collection.
After we learned that, we began to go through the apartment. We didn't find any of these coins.
This was brutal.
The first thing that went through my mind when he found out this coin collection is that's probably what got him killed.
Patrick's apartment was not ransacked.
In this case, it was just a drawer that was partially opened, and it was empty.
Whoever was involved knew that the coin collection was in the apartment.
So either he knew the suspect or the suspect had told somebody else where to find these items. And they also knew exactly where to go.
In an effort to learn more about Patrick, detectives interview his neighbors.
How well did you know Patrick?
He kind of kept to himself.
One neighbor urges investigators to follow up on some alarming discussions he's overheard.
Down in the dining room, they heard Richard saying that Patrick had been cut up.
He was cut up. He was stabbed, cut up.
He knew things that he would only know if he was there and saw the scene.
He was cut up.
So he obviously brought him up on our radar.
Investigators decide to pay Richard a visit to find out how he knew so many details about the scene of Patrick's murder.
Richard, my partner's going to ask you some questions regarding the night of Patrick's death.
Yeah, sure.
Now, I understand Rosemary knocked on your door.
She was yelling something about trouble with Patrick.
Richard tells police that after hearing the concern in Rosemary's voice, he wanted to check on Patrick.
So I went to his door. It was unlocked, opened it up, and there he was, just on the floor.
He realized that Patrick hadn't fallen. He had been, stabbed.
Detectives find Richard's story credible and determine he is not involved. He actually gives them what could be a useful lead.
Other resident, Sylvia, she's in 7.
Richard mentioned a woman named Sylvia who used to live in the Four Freedoms house on the same floor.
Patrick was telling me how she was stalking him.
The next day, they call the Four Freedoms management to ask if there are any emergency contacts listed for Sylvia Sutton, who is a former resident of the retirement home.
You got an Ann Sutton.
She listed her niece on the paperwork, Ann Sutton.
Detectives run the name Ann Sutton through their databases and find the name is actually an alias.
Check this out.
And what I found was that Ann Sutton's true name wasn't Ann Sutton, it was Monica Marks.
From an existing case file, police learn that Monica Marks works as a fortune teller at local fairs. She and Patrick's former neighbor, Sylvia, have a long and complex history together that began in 2007, over 4 years before Patrick's murder.
Sylvia Sutton was going through some tough times. She had lost a long-term relationship. She decided to go to the International District for a street fair.
Sylvia ventured inside a psychic booth where she met Monica, who was reading palms.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you today?
Well, it's so hot.
Have a seat. Make yourself comfortable.
Thank you.
My name is Monica. What's yours?
My name is Sylvia.
Nice to meet you, Sylvia.
Thank you.
May I take your hand?
Well, yes.
Close your eyes.
Okay.
And the palm reader told her that she had a gray aura about her that was really bad.
I can help you with that today, Sylvia.
You can?
I certainly can.
Monica offered the help Sylvia was desperate for as she tried to get over her recent breakup.
You know, she continued to tell Sylvia that she could help her get better.
I have a friend named Father Thomas. He does special work with me, but it costs a lot. And we can
According to Sylvia, Monica said Father Thomas could heal her gray aura.
She told her that Father Thomas was very, very important, and he could actually see the past, the present, and the future.
You will not suffer anymore.
That would be wonderful.
Yes, I'm going to help you.
Monica soon became Sylvia's personal psychic. Over the next 4.5 years, Sylvia found herself heartened by Monica's promises of healing and grew completely dependent on her.
Sylvia was estranged from her longtime boyfriend. She really didn't have anybody, and Monica kind of stepped into that role. So Monica was her friend. She just became totally involved in her life. She did everything for Sylvia.
Oh, Monica, I'm so glad you're here.
Sylvia grew so used to following Monica's advice that when Monica told Sylvia to move out of her apartment, she did. In fact, Monica repeatedly suggested to Sylvia that she change residences. Every time Sylvia listened, and every time, Monica and her friends helped the fragile woman pack up her belongings. In early 2011, they moved her into the Four Freedoms house. Sylvia wasn't sure why, but Monica asked to be introduced as her niece.
So she did that. This woman she knew as Monica Marks, she told everyone was her niece, Ann Sutton, which of course was a completely fictitious name.
Sylvia's new apartment was just down the hall from Patrick Fleming's.
Hi, Patrick. I want you to meet my niece, Ann.
Hi, I'm Ann. So nice.
And he became her friend and helped her a great deal.
Can we come in?
Come on in.
Thank you.
3 months after Patrick was brutally killed in his apartment, Sylvia is nowhere to be found. Tensions are building at the Four Freedoms as residents have been concerned for their safety. But detectives have found nothing to connect the sketchy neighborhood surrounding the home to the crime. Although police hadn't thought an elderly person could be responsible, residents begin to grow suspicious of each other. They can't help but remember Sylvia, who would often ask for cash. She'd even asked Patrick for help.
Hi, Patrick. It's Sylvia.
Sylvia was always trying to borrow money from Patrick, and that Patrick was getting a little annoyed with it.
I'll pay you back. Hope you're all right. Oh, I hope you get this message soon.
Her messages to him were, call me, help me, I need help. Call me, call me, call me.
Patrick refused to lend Sylvia money. And a few months before he was murdered, Sylvia disappeared from the Four Freedoms, moving out abruptly late one night. Coming up, investigators discover that Patrick Fleming may not be the only victim.
And I really felt terrible for her.
8 weeks after the cold-blooded murder of Patrick Fleming, Seattle police finally get results they've been waiting for from the crime lab.
It was very interesting information. It told us that there was an unknown male whose blood was at the scene.
The blood was found in a few different places, including under Patrick's fingernails.
Your DNA could inadvertently be left in somebody else's apartment a number of different ways, but for it to be left on the murder victim's fingertips also. This is our guy.
Detectives now know they're looking for a male, but with few other leads to go on, they continue to dig into the bizarre tale of Patrick's former neighbor, Sylvia, and her personal psychic, Monica.
So I did some more research on Monica Marks.
Despite suspicions amongst Patrick's neighbors about Sylvia, investigators understand that she herself was also a victim.
Well, Monica basically defrauded her. She stole money from her because anytime that she would have a problem, she would come to Monica, and Monica would just take more money.
Monica, thank you for coming. I'm so glad you're here.
I was convinced that I needed help,
Of course, Sylvia.
and I wanted to feel better. And she seemed to be the person that could help me.
Sylvia, give me your hands.
Okay.
Sylvia believes she was paying Monica and a mysterious man she never met named Father Thomas to heal her.
Here, he's made himself available to me. He's going to pray for you, Sylvia.
And so Sylvia gave Monica money, lots of money.
She would tell me that she needed money so that she and the fathers could see that my aura was getting in better shape.
Sylvia says Monica instructed her to make numerous cash withdrawals and hand the money over in an envelope made out to Father Thomas.
It was just one very large cash withdrawal after another. They were pretty much in between $8,000 and $9,500 every withdrawal.
Under Monica's spell, Sylvia had sold her condo, her car, and more than 34,000 shares of Microsoft stock.
I hope this is enough.
She gave it all to Monica.
I lost everything.
And the devastation is huge. Here she was, a very prominent, well-to-do woman, and basically she's completely destitute.
From 2007 to 2011, Sylvia paid Monica a staggering amount, over $1 million. Her entire life savings.
Monica really had me hoodwinked. I don't know any other term for it. It was kind of a mind control. Now, I feel like, how did that happen?
Sit down, Sylvia. I have something else for you.
Detectives think it's possible that Monica may have been drugging Sylvia.
He wants you to take this.
She did tell me, at one point that when Monica was meeting with her, she would always have to take a white pill.
She'd say, here, take this because it'll help you sleep and calm down.
Monica's con lasted until one day in November 2011, when Sylvia finally woke up.
I was looking for my debit card and no debit card. And then I looked, no driver's license, so
Monica.
I called 911.
Sylvia called police because she believed Monica had taken her cards.
I want to report a theft. Their name is Monica Marks.
I knew that, she was a culprit.
Just weeks into the investigation of Patrick's murder, Seattle PD's Elderly Exploitation Division was assigned to Sylvia's case. Sylvia gave detectives a name and description of Monica Marks, but she was not able to identify any possible suspects.
Do either of these look like Monica?
She's never able to ID anybody that I can locate known as Ann Sutton or Monica Marks.
Detective St. John is about to close Sylvia's case.
We have to have a positive ID.
But then, in March 2012, police investigating Patrick Fleming's murder make a breakthrough that can help both investigations. Using a phone number for Monica from Sylvia's case file, Detective Kasner discovers that Monica has yet another alias.
Did some more digging on Monica's name and found that her true name wasn't Monica Marks, it was Brenda Nicholas.
Brenda Nicholas.
And when he runs the name Brenda Nicholas through police databases, he finds multiple cases against her. Brenda appears to call the shots in a loosely organized crime group that consists of a few small-time criminals, including her boyfriend, Archie Marks. But there is one case in particular that cracks the homicide investigation wide open.
That aha moment in this case was when we discovered the arrest of Brenda Nicholas and her group by an outside police agency and got a copy of the report.
The report includes a list of stolen items recovered from Brenda's house in a police raid. And on that list, a critical clue.
And they found a black briefcase in Brenda's apartment.
Inside the briefcase, police recovered paperwork with Patrick Fleming's name on it.
And that's when we knew that we were on the right track.
Brenda Nicholas.
Now, detectives are confident that Brenda Nicholas is connected to Patrick's murder, but they don't have enough evidence to arrest her.
Pam. Hey, what's up? I need your help.
They joined forces with the detective working Sylvia's case
I've got 50 counts of theft.
to try to get Brenda behind bars for theft while they build the murder case against her.
Yeah, let's do it.
But what they really need to seal the theft charges is a positive ID from Sylvia. Detective Kasner pays her a visit.
I'm going to show you some pictures. I want you to look through them.
I really felt terrible for her. She had to move several times. There was so much money that was gone. I said, well, I want to try to identify that lady that you know as Monica.
Nope, that's not Monica.
She hits Brenda's picture and she starts crying. And she goes, that's Monica. That's Monica. She's the one that took my money.
Monica.
Detective Kasner asks Sylvia if the woman she knew as Monica knew about Patrick's coin collection.
Did you ever meet Patrick?
Yeah, she met him on several occasions because...
It turns out that Patrick had a history of telling people about his coin collection.
Checked on my coin collection, and the value has gone up.
Apparently, everybody that knew Patrick knew about the coin collection because that's all Patrick ever talked about.
In a year, it's worth several percent more. It's 20%
Patrick,
higher.
earnest and trusting, often spoke openly about how valuable his collection was.
Patrick, you shouldn't be talking about this.
I trust the people I'm around.
And about the fact that he kept it in his apartment.
Beautiful. Yeah, I fell in love with this coin.
They would show people when they came over. He was very proud of it.
I warned Patrick that it was dangerous to have that much money in his apartment and that he should probably put it into a safe deposit box.
But apparently, Patrick never followed this advice.
He had mentioned to someone earlier in his life that if anyone tried to steal his money, his coins, it would be over his dead body.
Sylvia tells Detective Kasner that she had told Monica about Patrick's coins.
So Monica was very interested in Patrick's coin collection.
At first, Monica simply encouraged Sylvia's friendship with Patrick.
She would come to visit me. She would say that he seemed to be a nice man. You should be friendly with him. He's very nice.
Next, Brenda, a.k.a. Monica, or Anne, asked to meet him herself.
Good way to pass my free time.
And as Patrick loved to do, he showed off his coin collection.
Well, it's insured for $60,000.
They're beautiful.
Call us if you think of anything else, okay?
Okay.
Finally, with a positive identification in Sylvia's case, Seattle PD has everything they need to charge Brenda with over 50 counts of theft. And Detective Kasner can also link her directly to Patrick.
Brenda knew that the coins were there. She has a history of exploiting elderly people. And we had Patrick's belongings at her house.
The pieces seem to be falling into place, except for one nagging detail. The DNA at the scene belongs to a male. Coming up, detectives try to outwit the cunning Brenda.
Brenda is the brains behind most of the things that are going on. She's the top dog. Nobody tells her what to do.
Seattle detectives are trying to get their lead suspect, Brenda Nicholas, behind bars on theft charges while they build their case against her for the murder of Patrick Fleming. They know they're dealing with a master manipulator.
At this point, we know that Brenda is involved. Brenda is very adept at spotting a vulnerable person, exploiting those vulnerabilities, and putting them in some sort of psychological dependence.
She has convinced Sylvia Sutton to give her over $1 million, and she seems to have everyone in her small crime group firmly in her control.
Brenda is the brains behind most of the things that are going on. She's the top dog. Nobody tells her what to do.
For Seattle detectives, it's time to try to outsmart her. Their best shot is to find the man whose DNA was left under Patrick's fingernails and see how he is connected to Brenda. With ironclad DNA evidence, they'll have the leverage they need to get the still unidentified male to talk.
And once we identify him, we always look for the weak link, and once you get the weak link, then the rest of them will fall behind.
Detectives place Brenda's house under surveillance to identify the men in her circle and collect their DNA.
The first male in her life was Archie Marks, so he was the first one we concentrated on.
Detectives suspect Brenda's boyfriend Archie of being involved in her scams. He liked to smoke outside the apartment he and Brenda shared. The surveillance team has a plan.
We wanted to try to get his DNA, a sample of his DNA surreptitiously. The first thing they did is one of the guys with a broom swept up all the cigarette butts that were there. And that way, when Archie comes out and throws a cigarette down, you know that's his because all the rest of them have been cleaned up.
After Archie takes his next smoke break, a detective quickly collects his cigarette butt. Then, a sample of his DNA is sent in to be tested.
On CSI, when they put it for DNA, they get it back in 30 minutes. But in reality, it takes a month or two. And so we had to wait for the lab information to come back.
In the meantime, detectives check out the other men in Brenda's life. They know she has a driver, Charles Youngbluth. They think it's unlikely he committed the murder, but he may have overheard critical information while driving Brenda around.
I didn't think it was our individual because I thought he was too much of a wimp for that. But I thought this guy knows about what's going on, so let's go in there and talk to him.
So we wanted to get to him first before Brenda had a chance to influence him like she's known to do.
Detectives believe Charles is wrapped around Brenda's finger.
And the interview was very laid back. No yelling and screaming. Sometimes it's not a bad thing if they want to lie because they have to keep track of all those lies. So we want to see what he's going to say first in that first interview because we knew we were probably going to interview him again.
First, Charles says he has no idea who Patrick Fleming is.
No. You sure you were?
And we kind of came on a little harder with him.
I don't know anything about that.
And then he kind of admitted, okay, well, I don't know anything about the murder, but I know Brenda was talking about some guy that had some coins.
One time we were in the car, and
Charles says he would often drive Brenda and Sylvia to and from the Four Freedoms.
And at one time, Sylvia was in the car, and Brenda had made a reference like, hey, you should really get to know Patrick better. I want to know about his coin collection.
Well, you're a beautiful woman, and maybe you should have him take you out.
You think so?
Yeah, of course. Get to know him. I'd like to see the coin collection.
You would?
Yes.
I'm so happy that you're interested in my collection.
I'm very interested in your collection.
Let me show you my favorite one.
Then, Brenda's interest in Patrick's coins intensified.
Come on, Sylvia. Come on. I'm coming. You can walk a little faster. Okay. Okay.
Well, she would literally drag me across the hall.
I want to see the coin collection. Okay.
Oh, she wanted to see his coin collection, and she was so interested.
Most of them are in #1 condition. And,
It's so shiny.
yeah.
We asked him, have you ever seen any coins? And he said, yes, I had seen coins at the house.
As police had hoped, Charles spills plenty of info about Brenda.
yeah, Brenda had some coins.
What did they look like?
It was different coins and plastic sheets.
Maybe like this?
Brought out pictures of the types of collections that were missing.
And I said, any of these look familiar? And I think he picked maybe 3. I've seen this one, I've seen this one, I've seen this one.
Bingo. With Charles's admission, detectives have all they need for the moment to link Brenda Nicholas to Patrick Fleming's beloved coin collection. 5 days later, Brenda is arrested for over 50 counts of theft.
Brenda Nichols? Excuse me?
And she's exactly where homicide investigators want her, safely behind bars, while they continue to gather evidence to charge her in Patrick Fleming's murder. Coming up,
Thank you very much, Darren. Great.
the last domino falls.
But we then knew for a fact that he was actively involved with that murder.
Seattle police are hoping DNA taken from Brenda's boyfriend matches the male DNA found at the scene of Patrick Fleming's murder. But results from the lab are disappointing to authorities.
They did not match individual A at the crime scene, so Archie Marks was eliminated as a potential suspect.
No charges were ever brought against Archie Marks in connection with Patrick Fleming's murder.
Hey, Tara.
But 3 weeks later, detectives get another call from the lab. This time, it's a bombshell.
Okay, thank you very much, Tara. Great.
When it's a significant piece of information, they call you, I want to read you a report. When she's telling me something big is going on here, otherwise they just send you a report.
As a routine move after an interview with Brenda's driver, detectives had taken a buccal swab to have tested. What they hear stuns them.
Jason, Charles Jungbluth's a match.
The DNA sample for Charles Jungbluth matched individual A. The person whose blood was left at the scene.
So we then knew for a fact that Charles was there. He was actively involved with that murder.
We get him, we can break open the whole case.
You got it.
Nice job.
All right.
The guy police thought was nothing more than a stool pigeon, a sidekick of the ruthless Brendan Nicholas, is their man. The question is, what role did Brendan Nicholas play in the horrific crime?
Right then, we just set the wheels in motion. I put out a bulletin. I said, I want to arrest Charles Jungbluth. I want him brought in.
Within hours, Charles is back in the interrogation chair. Detectives know getting Charles to talk is their best and maybe only shot at bringing down Brenda. Charles denies any involvement in Patrick Fleming's murder.
And then I started turning the pressure up just a little bit.
Talking about a lab report.
And I told him, I've got your DNA. Said, they say it's your DNA to a probability of 1 in 10 quintillion.
This is a done deal, Charles.
The game was up. It was you.
Detective Steiger tells Charles in no uncertain terms that with this DNA proof, he is going to prison for Patrick's murder. It's up to him for how long.
He was hemming and hawing and said, I don't know. He goes, I think I want a lawyer, but I want to talk to you.
Are you going to let her just walk away from this?
And he hemmed and hawed and finally said, what do you want to know? And I said, I want to know the truth. And then he just started going through the story.
Brenda was just obsessed with these coins.
I want to see the coins again.
Charles says he overheard Brenda say that she wanted Patrick's coin collection.
It's beautiful.
Whatever you want, Monica.
That's what I want, Sylvia. Can't believe how many he has.
He has a lot.
He has a lot of coins.
Later, he said that Brenda approached him.
There's a man with a coin collection.
And we gotta get him, and the only way to get him is to kill him.
I want you to help me.
He had nickel and dime traffic tickets, and he just jumps right to the big leagues and butcher a guy to steal.
Charles appears to have fallen under Brenda's powerful and manipulative spell.
He was attracted to Brenda. He kind of fell in love with Brenda, and they had this relationship. She just would have him do anything for him.
Charles tells police there was another woman involved named Gilda Ramirez.
Gilda had been with Brenda for several years.
Brenda and Gilda appear to have had a strange history. Gilda had been working as an architect in New York City when she met Brenda on the street.
Brenda said to her something along the lines of, I can tell you're troubled. I'm a psychic.
Brenda promised to help, but according to investigators, she scammed Gilda instead. And soon Gilda gave in completely to Brenda's powers.
You gotta do it now.
Charles tells detectives that they had several meetings to plot Patrick's murder.
Every time saying they were going to kill this guy and take his coin.
It's gotta happen tonight.
Finally, Brenda decides it's time to go through with the brutal plan.
We gotta kill him.
Why? Why now?
Because I'm out of money.
I said, Brenda, told him we have to do it now because Brenda was running out of money. She was desperate. We're going to do it now.
Are you in?
We went shopping at the Goodwill.
Brenda makes the bizarre decision to buy garish disguises that witnesses later described as peculiar.
Coats and hats and wig. And then we went to the apartment building.
Every step was choreographed as they made their way to Patrick's apartment that winter night.
Took the elevator up. Brenda sent Gilda to knock on the door.
Hi, I just moved next door. Can you help me with my cable?
And he didn't want to let her in.
Who are you? I don't know you.
I'm your next door neighbor. I really...
No.
Let me...
What is this?
Brenda came by and just shouldered her in and pushed him into the apartment.
Were you armed?
Kitchen knives.
According to Charles, once inside, Brenda tried to stab Patrick.
And then Patrick grabbed Brenda by the throat. That's when Charles went in and shoved them to the floor.
Charles tells them that at that moment, Gilda disappeared.
He said at that point, Brenda didn't think he was helping enough. She actually stabbed Charles in the arm.
Patrick finally stopped fighting for his life.
Gilda, get the coins!
At that point, he said that's when they started collecting the items.
She packed up the coins and took the briefcase.
It's a savage tale, but they have Charles's confession. Now, how to get Brenda.
I decided that my next move was going to be to arrest Gilda. I'm working my way up the chain, basically. Gilda's the next weak link.
If Gilda corroborates Charles's story, their case against Brenda will be airtight.
At first, Gilda denied any knowledge of anything I was talking about at all.
This is a murder case.
And I didn't do anything.
But detectives corner her with the information they have from Charles. They know she was there.
And I basically told her, Gilda, it's up.
This is your one chance to tell the truth. Otherwise, you are gone forever. You'll never work again other than pounding license plates in prison.
She goes, I'll talk. And then she just went through the whole story again.
She came with dresses and...
Gilda's story is consistent with Charles's. She also explains why she disappeared.
I did see something, but from the bathroom, okay?
She said she was sickened when they started stabbing him, so she ran to the bathroom. She's not a career criminal. She's not emotionally equipped to deal with something like this. But the door was ajar and she could see them. She saw him stabbing in the neck.
But even this horrific act wasn't enough to jolt Gilda out of Brenda's clutches.
Gilda, we gotta get the coins!
Gilda said they didn't just steal Patrick's coins. They also took his precious military medals.
Do you know what she did with all the coins?
Yes, she sold them at a pawn shop.
You're gonna like these. Thank you.
Did you get any money?
No.
Gilda and Charles both agree to testify against Brenda. Charles pleads guilty to first-degree murder. And Gilda pleads guilty to first-degree robbery, burglary, and possession of stolen property. Both get shorter terms for cooperating with the investigation.
Once we had Gilda and Charles wrapped up, then we knew we had enough to go to trial.
On April 8th, 2013, Brenda Nicholas is convicted of first-degree murder. She is sentenced to 34 years in prison. To some, this isn't enough.
Would have liked to have seen life in prison. You know, there will never be restitution to Sylvia or to any of these other victims?
It's messed up my whole life, but I'm trying to work on it, dealing with everything.
Brenda Nicholas had basically been like a hurricane through so many people's lives, leaving a trail of devastation everywhere she went.
Because of her aliases, some people still don't know who Brenda Nicholas really is, or how she was capable of ruining people's lives just for money. In court, Brenda's attorney said that she was raised to steal.
She just has never had a job. She carried $1,000 purses. She gambled thousands of dollars away in casinos. She went on elaborate vacations, but she lived on a mat on a floor in a psychic shop in North Seattle.
The only motive I've heard for her crimes that makes any sense is greed. Brenda really liked shiny things. She was willing to do whatever she had to do to get them. She was willing to ruin people, and then she was willing to kill.
As Patrick's loved ones mourn his loss, they also lament that the objects representing his finest accomplishments, his military medals, are still missing and almost certainly will never be recovered.
He was proud that he had served so valiantly, and on his gravestone, it mentions his medals for valor.
In the end, those who were close to Patrick want to remember not how he died, but how he lived.
When I think of Patrick, I think of what a fine person he was. He was honest, and he was brave, and he was kind, and he was generous. It's a terrible loss to the world to have lost Patrick.